You have to think change is possible. You have to think that things can get better eventually, or else it's impossible to get out of bed in the morning and do this work. And I have now seen this over the last nearly decade of what happens when normal people, everyday people, do a really extraordinary thing of putting their name on the ballot. I have seen people win in deep red places. I've seen people run and be the first of their community or their party to get on the ballot in that district, sometimes ever or in decades, and win. I've seen a mom of twins who were in the NICU in the beginning of her campaign go on to win in a deep red place after knocking doors every day for months and months on end and visiting her babies in the hospital at night, and then go on to expand Medicaid in Virginia, Jennifer Carafoy to be specific, who went on to expand Medicaid so that 700,000 Virginians had access to health care so that no family would ever hurt the way that her kids did. I think about the people we've worked with over the last 8 years and how could I not be optimistic? I've seen what's possible.
This is the Visible Voices podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Resa E. Lewis. In today's episode, I cannot wait to bring you my conversation with Ms. Amanda Litman. You may know Amanda as the president and co-founder of Run for Something, which is 8 years old. Co-founded in 2017 with Ross Morales Roquetto, Run for Something is a multi-million-dollar political organization that recruits and supports millennials and Gen Zers running for local office. And to level set audience, let me provide you with some working definitions, which Amanda herself provided for me in her new book out this month, When We're in Charge, The Next Generation's Guide to Leadership. This is a first-of-its-kind practical manual for millennials and Gen Zers. Millennials, by the way, are those people born between the early 80s and mid-90s. Gen Zers are those people born from the mid-90s into the early 2010s. This is a playbook. This is a leadership book. This is a business book. Okay, let's get to the conversation. Amanda, welcome to the Visible Voices podcast.
Thank you for having me.
What I'll say is you quote candidates, open slots, boards, and other state legislative positions for which to run the way someone who reads the sports pages can quote sports stats. Where did that come from?
I've always had a pretty good memory, but also I've been doing this work now for over 8 years, and it's as embedded in my brain as the Eminem lyrics I knew as a teenager. I'll never unknow sort of the fact that there are about 1,300 counties across the country that elect coroners, or that this year there's about 98,000 elections up, most of them between February and July. It's just part of the language that I speak now.
It's Q1 2025. What do things look like in terms of slots, candidates, and what Run for Something is doing in terms of prepping people to run for office?
Since Trump won back in November, we have seen record numbers of people signing up to run for office. My expectations by the time this airs, we will already have had the most number of people sign up in the last 6 months that we've had since the entire organization began. We're averaging hundreds of people a day thinking about running for office. Now, will it ever be enough to fill every office? I hope so one day. But right now, our goal is to build as big of a top of funnel as we can, knowing that at this point, most of the people signing up with us are probably going to run in 2026, which is good because based on the way the political landscape is shaking out, 2026 is an opportunity for Democrats and anti-fascist leaders to win big. It could be a landslide election in any number of ways. So we should fight everywhere to have the opportunity to win in unexpected environments.
Where are you right now, would you say, for maybe some people who are not feeling so optimistic about the state of the world? There seems to be a positivity about what you just shared.
I think in order to do political work, you have to be an optimist. Even if it's a pessimistic optimist, you have to think change is possible. You have to think that things can get better eventually, or else it's impossible to get out of bed in the morning and do this work. And I have now seen this over the last nearly decade of what happens when normal people, everyday people, do a really extraordinary thing of putting their name on the ballot. I've seen people win in deep red places. I've seen people run and be the first of their community or their party to get on the ballot in that district, sometimes ever or in decades, and win. I've seen a mom of twins who were in the NICU in the beginning of her campaign go on to win in a deep red place after knocking doors every day for months and months on end and visiting her babies in the hospital at night, and then go on to expand Medicaid in Virginia, Jennifer Carafoy to be specific, who went on to expand Medicaid so that 700,000 Virginians had access to health care so that no family would ever hurt the way that her kids did. I think about the people we've worked with over the last 8 years and like, how could I not be optimistic? I've seen what's possible.
Your upbringing, your family, was it one of political engagement and civic engagement?
I grew up in the DC suburbs, so politics was sort of the air we breathed. But no one in my family works in politics. My dad was a lawyer. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a while who ultimately went back to school to become a PhD in economics. I'm the oldest of four, and we're very, very close in age. None of my siblings work in politics. I had a best friend in middle school and high school whose mom was very politically engaged, who used to take us to protests and to knock doors. We went to a pro-choice Virginia rally when I was in middle school, early high school. We'd go knock doors for Virginia Democrats, which in the late 90s, early 2000s was kind of a long shot effort.
Medicine, healthcare, physicians were socialized to not be political. Medicine and healthcare and taking care of people, that's not political. We both know, though, healthcare and medicine has become politicized.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have seen this awakening, and I hope for a continuing awakening for physicians becoming more involved, becoming more vocal. And I'd love to hear, where you think physicians get involved in politics and to run for something.
I think it is so necessary to have healthcare professionals of all kinds running for office. Especially, I think this came to light during COVID, but has been true ever since and before. We need experts from all backgrounds to serve an elected office, especially these state and local offices, which are not full-time positions. Now, we definitely need more doctors in Congress, but we've worked with physicians, nurses, healthcare experts, masters in public health, a whole gamut who have run for things like state ledge, city council, school board, library board, who have used their expertise to better govern. I think about Dr. Megan Srinivas, who's an infectious disease expert and a doctor in the Iowa state legislature. She won in, I think, either 2018 or 2020. I don't remember off the top of my head, but she's still serving. Her expertise has made her a better legislator. It makes her a better expert when evaluating the impact on public health, and makes her better at communicating out science and making sure that her knowledge and her background are brought to light in these hearings on public health issues. I think it also makes her a better doctor of really understanding the way that public health and the way that government affects the quality of life for her patients.
Do doctors act differently? Do they stand out when they're the ones running for office? Are they different than other people running?
Yeah, they often have very specific lived experience, stories of their patients that helps inform why they've run, the sort of social health and environmental health context that people are living in that bring them into their doctor's offices. That really inform, this is a problem that I cannot solve as an individual, that as a health expert, I can't fix from my clinic. I need to fix it on a system-wide approach. I think that makes them really compelling candidates.
Yeah, I believe health is umbrella: physical health, mental health, emotional health, social health, financial health, and definitely civic health. Again, the awakening has been a little delayed, I think, because of this socialization, that I think even that is changing in medicine. You've mentioned library boards as really important and a good way to get in. Tell me more.
I love library boards. I wish New York City had an elected library board, because it's the one position I'm I would run for that. For what it's worth, the Brooklyn Library Board is appointed.
You're not that I've done my research.
Of course I have. So library boards are such an incredible place to live your values as part of your community. In many places, library boards quite literally govern the budget of the library. Sometimes it's decided by municipal governments. Sometimes the library board shapes it. They do things like hire and fire librarians or directors of libraries. They run facilities. They run programming. They often shape what books are ordered or what kind of events are held. But they've really become the focal point over the last couple of years as we talk about book bans, access to books, especially for younger kids and for teenagers. We worked with a library board. I think she's still technically a trustee, Dr. Katie Clark in Altadena, California. She once explained to me, the library holds the meaning of the community. You think about it, it is one of the true places and one of the only places where every age group, every background, every class, every ethnicity engages with government. You think about the parent that brings their kid to story time. I bring my kids to story time nearly every weekend. The new citizen who goes to learn English. The senior citizen who goes for knitting circle on Tuesday nights. The person looking to apply for a job who goes and uses the library resources. It holds the memory and the future of that community. It's the third space that people so badly want. Libraries are amazing. And there's a reason that the right and the anti-democracy folks are trying to take them down, trying to undo them. It's like a joke online. If somebody tried to invent a library today, you wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to get the public will. They must be protected and they must be fought for. And the way to do that is to run for the boards that oversee them.
What is a coroner elected?
Oh, so in about 1,300 counties across the country, coroners are elected positions. They, as you can imagine, investigate deaths. They issue death certificates. This became a really big issue during COVID in particular, where coroners who were anti-COVID or anti-vax would not put COVID on death certificates, undercounting deaths. We also ran into this, in particular, worked with a candidate in Colorado who's running for coroner, specifically around the issue of trans dignity after death. The incumbent coroner, I believe, or the Republican who was running for coroner, wanted to misgender people after death, putting the wrong gender on their death certificates. This has a direct effect on statistics and the way that you then implement prevention measures. And trans people are disproportionately affected by things like both homicide and suicide. Yeah. So it was really affecting the way they were allocating resources. The other position that I'm not sure if you've talked about here is hospital board.
Tell us more.
So hospital board is a really interesting position. It's not everywhere, but in places with public hospital systems that are governed by elected hospital boards, there's a lot of these in California. There's a bunch of these in Florida. In particular, the Sarasota Hospital Board has been a really big hotbed for far-right activity. You'll have literally anti-healthcare people running and winning positions who then try to either privatize the hospital system, ruin patient care, make it even worse for doctors, nurses, and staff to work in these places. It's a really dangerous office for someone who doesn't believe in public health to take. And it's something that obviously the right has spent a lot of resources in investing in.
It's graduation season, and guess what? There's a perfect gift for anyone taking the next big step. It's called Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact, co-authored by Dr. Resa E. Lewis. This book breaks down success into specific intentional behaviors that anyone can develop, whether you're a student entering the workforce or simply wanting to improve your daily interactions, and who wouldn't want to do that? These evidence-based techniques will transform how you communicate and present yourself. What makes this book so special is that it doesn't offer generic advice. It provides actionable resources that make a real difference in all aspects of your life. Available in hardcover, ebook, and audiobook formats wherever you get your books. And if you're looking to bring microskills to your organization or student group, reach out to Dr. Lewis directly via LinkedIn or through her website. Remember, Microskills, your go-to graduation gift that keeps on giving throughout life's journey.
For listeners that aren't completely familiar with Run for Something, your book actually walks them through running for office.
If you go back to my book, Run for Something, which is really a how-to guide. It's a how-to guide I wanted to give candidates our first year that we didn't have. But if you sign up with Run for Something at runforwhat.net, you'll start to get information from our team. We do regular calls, we do trainings, we have ton of resources at this point explaining everything from what local offices actually do to how to get on the ballot, what to do once you're on the ballot, how to write a campaign plan, how to raise money. We will talk you through every step of the process. What I like to tell folks is that the only qualifications you truly need to run for office, besides some places have residency requirements, you probably need to be a citizen, that kind of thing, is you need to know the problem you care about solving, how the office you're running for would give you power to solve it, and why voters should want you to win, which is different than why you want to win. You want to win because winning is great and losing sucks. Voters want you to win because you're going to do something really specific for them. If you can answer those three questions, basically everything else about a campaign is logistics. And you can learn logistics, and we can teach you and help you through the logistics.
I love asking authors, how are you different having written this book? So how are you different having written book one? So maybe you haven't yet written book two.
Run for Something was my first book. I wrote it in a fugue state in 2017. In 3 or 4 months, I think we started it in February. It came out in October. So it was really a crash. And it was the first time I ever thought of myself as a writer, which was a cool thing. I've always loved writing. It's been so meaningful to me. It's my favorite part of the work I do. That's what email writing was. But to sit down and write a book is the first time I ever got paid for writing that wasn't ghostwriting for email. And was the first time I could ever think of myself as this is something I do and is part of who I am. So that was really helpful in sort of shaping, honestly, the last 8 years of, no, I'm an executive, I'm a political strategist, I'm a boss, I'm a leader, but also I'm a writer. And that's part of who I am too.
Great. It's actually a perfect time for me to ask you about your voice. When do you think you realized you had a voice, and when did you start using that voice?
Oh, what a thoughtful question. I think when we started Run for Something. So Run for Something was born of the ashes of the 2016 election. I worked for Hillary for 2 years. About a week or so after Election Day, I'd started hearing from people I'd gone to high school and college with who wanted to run for office and didn't know where to go. And I was the person they knew who worked in politics. So they asked. We wrote a plan along with Ross, my co-founder. We built a website and we launched Run for Something on Trump's first inauguration day. And I had never talked to a reporter. I had never been a public person. I had, I don't know, a couple thousand followers on social media just from like the years of doing campaigns, but it wasn't a big part of my life or my job. And a very quick realization that I was saying something that people needed to hear. And then I took screenshots over the years of emails I've gotten from people or messages of, I saw a thing you posted on social media. I'm running for office. I'm not applying for Representing's endorsement. Like, I'm not eligible. It's not the need. I don't need the help. But like, I wouldn't have done this if I hadn't seen that, or if I hadn't heard this interview you did. And that to me has affirmed for me that like, no, doing this matters. Speaking out matters. Asking people to do this really, really matters. Even if that's the only way we engage.
Yeah, I just got the chills. I love that. You've written a leadership book and you're very clear about your audience. And also, there's no question people, older generations can read it, should read it, will learn from it, because maybe you're not that age. And also, you are working with people that age. You are hopefully supervising, mentoring, sponsoring, being an ally to people of a different age. And we know that diverse teams are successful teams. Here's a quote about your job as a leader. Your job as a leader isn't to be your true self. It's to be your best self, working in service of a mission. Your communication and self-presentation isn't really about you. It's about your goals and your team. You have to be yourself, but strategically.
Mm-hmm. This is one of my hotter takes, which is I think, especially for millennials and Gen Z, we have been raised and encouraged, bring your full self to work. Be your true, authentic snowflake of a person. I do think that's true. And I think people crave authenticity and vulnerability. But the second you are in charge of other people, it's not about you. What I do at work, what I do as a leader is not to satisfy my own ego. It's not about making me feel good. It's about accomplishing our mission and serving our team. And that means sometimes I have to shut the fuck up or sit on my hands.
Yeah.
As I remind myself, silence is free and I should constantly avail myself of it. That is a really hard thing to do when you're trying to balance the hunger people have for authenticity. So what I try to do in the book, and I hope it comes through, is give folks a framework for thinking about who am I? What does my team and my mission need? What is the overlap between the two? And how do I do that in a way that feels comfortable and true and consistent that ultimately gets the thing done?
Did you always know this, or is this something you've come to over time?
I think I've learned this over the years, and I've seen it in politicians. That's one of the things of working with so many candidates. I've worked with thousands of candidates, and I've personally gotten to know hundreds of them over the years. I think politics is a very particular kind of leadership, and it is both public and private. You are very public facing as a politician, but you're also running a campaign, you're running an office, you're engaging one-on-one. And finding the way to do that has balance and sustainability is really instructive.
You know leadership when you see it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's absolutely right. And you know cowardice when you see it, just sort of the flip.
Yeah, say more.
Well, when people are afraid, whether it's afraid to take a stand or afraid to be themselves. This was one of the challenges I had when I was trying to describe what I call responsible authenticity, which is that when someone's like not being their self or not comfortable in their own skin. It makes you, I don't know, it makes me want to be like, poke them. Be like, what's wrong with you? Like, just be yourself. Stop bullshitting me. Just tell me who you are and what you stand for. I don't have to agree with you, but it's the obfuscation that can be very frustrating and very irritating.
I was reading William Zinser's book on writing well, and he basically said, you have to write authentically yourself. You can't write like someone else because the reader can tell if you're not being yourself, being authentically you. And similarly to what you just shared, when someone is standing up in front of you in a meeting, you can tell when they're not being themselves.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way about writing. It has, especially this book was so helpful for me. I have 2 kids now, but when I started it, I had one. And the act of writing it was instrumental to sort of helping me re-find my sense of self after my first kid.
Being an introvert, yet being able to function in the workplace as an extrovert, where have you found yourself? Where are you today when it comes to boundaries, authenticity, and showing up?
Such a good question. It's always a work in progress. I think I have really come to a place where I can very intimately understand the mission is so urgent and so important. Not every task in service of that mission is urgent and as important. And being able to discern between those things and where is the time that I must spend for my work versus where is the time where I must spend with my family or for myself, that comes with age and experience, but that also comes with being incredibly clear-eyed about my priorities.
This concept of rest and deliberate rest, I thought, 12 hours was a direct correlation with 12 hours of productivity. And then you realize, actually, no.
Mm-mm.
The more you do this deliberate rest and do all the things that energize and are healthy, when I get back to work, there's a much better focus, much better productivity, which also leads us to the 4-day work week. Go.
So Run for Something has a 4-day work week. It rules. It is the only way I've been able to do this work for 8 years. It's been even more necessary now that I have kids, in that I am very lucky and grateful to have 5-day childcare. So Run for Something treats Friday like a weekend. And most of the time you don't work on weekends. And it has been so helpful. It was very hard at first. I'll say onboarding to it was challenging for both me and my team. Sort of adjust your pace, your deliverables, how you think about your time management. But I will never work on Fridays again. It is a revelation for how you can get stuff done in the time you have available for you. And it's a thing that I heard over and over again from the more than 130 leaders I talked to, including doctors and medical professionals, where, the whatever it is, 100-hour residencies, did that really make you a better doctor? Did it make you more trained? Or was it just the suffering that everyone had gone through in the past that now you have to go through too? Would it be better if not a 4-day work week, something more humane, something more compassionate, more balanced to get to the same place?
It's as if you're looking at my little cues. You talked about onboarding. I'd love to hear your take on onboarding, its importance, and re-onboarding.
Mm-hmm. So onboarding is so necessary because it sets the tone. It's like the invitation you send to the party. It's the first real introduction you have. It's your first 3 dates, for example, with your new work or your new team. The way that you onboard people helps put them in the mindset you want them to be as they join your culture and your community. Now, re-onboarding is a thing that I was taught by someone I interviewed, KP Trueblood, of having your team regularly all go through this reintroduction, both because things change, but also because it's a real good chance to level set. So we're actually doing some re-onboarding with Run for Something over this year to make sure we're all aligned on who we are and how we operate and what has changed over the years and what hasn't, and really understand people's roles. Because I think it is easy, especially if you've been together for a while, to sort of atrophy away from who you want to be. And re-onboarding gives you a chance to have that formal conversation.
So going back to millennials and Gen Zers, generationally, people are much more like, no way, boundaries. I like to take care of myself, or I need my downtime.
Mm-hmm. My sister is a second-year resident. She'll be like, yeah, I've been in the hospital for 36 hours or I've been on call. And I am so grateful for that kind of training. I'm sure that in many ways it's very useful, but it is hard for me to see someone I really care about. I love my sister, to go through that and to know that there's no way around that. That can't be making her a better person. It's certainly not making her happier, even if she loves the work that she's doing.
You have said, this is from your book, that you should use your integrity to build a suit of armor.
Part of being a leader is to do things that people don't like. You're taking a stand, you're laying out a vision, you're often making decisions about people's economic livelihood, about the things especially if your leadership is at work, the things that you decide as a leader, the tone that you set shapes their day-to-day lived experience for the thing they spend most of their waking hours at. And part of that means that people are going to be mad at you, or they're going to critique you. Maybe they'll do it privately, maybe they'll do it publicly. I've experienced that myself. The thing that you have to come back to is that if you are doing this in service of your mission and your goals, you are doing the right thing. The places where I have veered away from what I know was right for the organization, where I have put my ego or my sensitivities above the goal, above the mission, is when the criticism hurts the most. Because I know they're right. But the decisions that I've made over the years that have been mission first, team first, criticize me all you want. My job was to put the team and the mission first, and I did that. And I heard this again from so many of my interviews I did with other leaders. If you know that you have done the right thing for your end goal, that your integrity is your suit of armor.
So beautiful. I'd love you to leave the audience with one thing, just one thing they can do if they want to up their political engagement, their civic engagement, and helping to create a healthier democracy.
My obvious answer here is run for office. I think it is so important that we have healthcare professionals and experts running for office, especially in this environment where we have people who don't believe in public health or aren't experts running so much of the healthcare infrastructure, at least at the national level. We desperately need you. You can do this. You can still be a doctor and serve on your local school board or your city council or even your state legislature. Run for Something has worked with so many healthcare experts over the years. If you do this, you can affect not just the health of your patients, but the health of your entire community or bigger. It can be transformative. Now, if you can't, if for whatever reason this isn't the right time for you, think about how you can get involved in local politics in particular. It is going to be so important in the next couple of years that we have really strong leaders at the local level, both to mitigate harm and to advance progress. And the best way for you to do that is to knock doors, make calls, give money to the people running for the kinds of local positions that affect your day-to-day life.
The Resa wrap-up. Special thanks to my guest, Amanda Litman. Yes, audience, every single one of my guests gets a special thanks because I really appreciate them joining me in conversation. So as a reminder, Amanda Litman is the co-founder of Run for Something. She's the author of a book by the same name and now the author of When We're in Charge, The Next Generation's Guide to Leadership. 3 highlights from the conversation, audience. Number 1, the 4-day work week. This can enhance productivity and work-life balance. As Amanda says, the 4-day work week rules. Number 2, libraries. Local governance positions like library boards are vital for community engagement. And as Amanda says, libraries are amazing. Finally, number 3, run for office, she says, we need you. Run for Something recruits and supports young candidates for local office. Healthcare professionals, that's we, happen to have a unique perspective on community needs. We bring valuable expertise to elected office, including our stories and our lived experience. Think, audience, about running for a hospital board, a library board, the coroner's office position. Civic health is health, and I encourage all of us to be engaged to help create an ongoing, healthy democracy. That's all I have for you this week, audience. See you next time. The Visible Voices podcast amplifies voices in the healthcare, equity, and current trends spaces. We are a production of the People's Media Network. Our team includes Dr. Giuliano DePortu and me, Dr. Resa E. Lewis. Please find me through my website and on social media, Resa E. Lewis, MD, or through the podcast, thevisiblevoicespodcast.com. Please give us a 5-star rating on Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, please be sure to share the show with a friend. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the institution with which they are affiliated or identified. Information herein should never be used as a substitute for clinical judgment or for medical advice.